tell them, we have this plan, would you like to implement it? Or if you want to say to maybe the SCDF that we have this plan, could you look at it and tell us where we can improve? Because these are the people who make emergencies their bread and butter. So this is something for you to think about. Okay. If you look at point G, you need to look at, you need to elaborate and explain ideas you generate. Basically, every time you have something you want to splinter off and you want to be able to say, okay, this is an idea that I have. You cannot just say, okay, I have got idea, and you say this, that, I'm just going to pass it on to some national agency. And then after that say, and then just stop short there. You need to explain, why do you want to give it to this particular agency? Like the boy wearing that blue sweater who's contemplating the stars in the ordeal. Would be good if you were to listen and do your insights and reflections at some other point. Yes? Ken? Yes, you're looking straight at me. It'd be nice to know if you understood me. You cannot? That would be nice. If not, staring is quite rude. No. Have decided to look at the paper copiously. Very well brought up. I'd like for you to remember this, okay? You need to give justification for the choices that you make. For example, if you tell me your project or your written report is flawless, your plan is flawless, I'd like to know why. Perhaps you can justify it by saying, these are the best practices that have taken place all over the world. And we have actually put all the best practices in one document. And we have done a dry run of this, and we've discovered that not only is it faster, better, more efficient, it is something that people have not thought about yet. You can say that. But you need to give me some research and some kind of backing to show me that it is very, very good. Okay? Later on, if you look at point H, you should not be too defensive of your own project in I&R. Why? Please do not think about it as, oh my goodness, there is nothing wrong with my plan. This I&R is, useless because it is so flawless. And if you're really, really brilliant, you'll see that flawlessness. We need for you to evaluate it very honestly. Like, would there be things that you would like to change? For example, if you had more time, if you had more information, say if you had more knowledge or the know-how, or if you had more opportunities to look at examples of how you can actually construct an emergency plan. Now, you want to be able to say you need perhaps materials, you need opportunities, and so on and so forth, and market it that way. This, I'm going to repeat over and over again, should not be one of those things where you just complain. I don't think emergency plans are useful at all. We've wasted my entire youth just doing it. We don't want things like that. Now, we are getting you to practice this in anticipation of your project work in year 5. You will do this one more time in year 4. But it's necessary for you to be very objective in terms of really critically analyzing your own work and the quality of your own work. For example, if you have a gopher in your group or someone who slacked off, what could you have done to remedy the situation? For example, you might say that, you might have taken better steps in managing this particular student. You could have said, you can say that maybe if you had immediately sought the help of your tutor, then that would have also helped. Or you could, if you were the slacker or gopher in your group, you could actually then start saying, maybe I shouldn't have done that because of various reasons. Okay? So those are things that you want to think about. Now, these are the examples that we want to show you. In 2010, the Year 5 project work task was amalgamation. Amalgamation is when you put two things together and then you get the best of things, the conflation of two things. When you amalgamate, you actually put those two things together. And if you read the red one, the things in red, that's just the task. When you get to Year 5, that's what the task looks like. It is not as specific as the tasks that you get now. And we want to move away from specificity to that kind of ambiguity so that you can cope with it. But what I want you to look are the questions that follow that. What were your key considerations when selecting an example of, and you don't have to actually use the word amalgamation. For example, what was the key consideration when you selected an example of a country that had an emergency plan? For example, what were the areas in which you wanted to base your emergency plan on? And that really has to do with what you know and what you understand to be an emergency plan, or what you understand to be an emergency. Like for example, if I prick my finger now and then there was like one drop of blood, does that count as an emergency? You would obviously say no, maybe for me it might be an emergency. So all these kind of things must come out. Why you chose this particular emergency? Why this case study of this country? Why do you want to apply it to Singapore? Why not apply it to another country? And if you decided to apply it to another country, why that country required that emergency plan? Was it because sometime they had some emergency and they didn't have an emergency response plan? And what happened was lives were lost. Lives, livestock, buildings, materials, and stuff like that were all lost. For example, if you think about the incident in Japan when the nuclear power plant, started, having problems, was there an immediate emergency plan? And what would have happened if there were an emergency plan? Okay, if you look at this, question 2 and question 3, question 1 and 2 are similar. Question 3 is important. If your group had a chance to start over again, would you still choose this example for your project? Remember, we're not asking whether you would do the project, but whether you would choose the same case study. Would you choose the same country? Would you still choose the same disaster? Why or why not? It is useless for you to say, I wouldn't want to do this. You need to go so far as to explain it, to show some kind of analysis and evaluation. You might want to go even further by saying, I would have chosen this instead. And that would have been generation of idea. And then you explain it, would be analysis A and E again. And that would really rank highly in the way you are thinking. Now, I'm going to repeat this again. We are looking for G, I, and A and E in your insights and reflections. So it would be very good if you can start thinking about it now. The questions will not be made known to you until you get there, but these are the guiding questions. It will not depart far from it. Okay. The next one, you can actually identify the positive and negative impacts on those concerned. Now, this is very important mainly because whenever you have an emergency plan, you need to prioritize, and I've said this before, you need to prioritize who you rescue first and where and why. And therefore, when you look at this, when you make a you prioritize, one of the key things you do is you are leaving some other people behind. You need to be able to see whether that's a positive or negative thing and why. For example, like when we do emergency operations in school, what are the first things that we do? If you didn't know already, if there is a fire evacuation and we've done that, you find that kids, students, you will always be accompanied by your teachers if there is a teacher in your room. After that, what happens is the teachers go back and start combing the place. Now, what does that mean? It means that if there was a real fire, real explosion, the first line of safety, the first priority are the students. Thereafter, when we have ascertained, when the teachers go back and start looking through all the rooms and making sure that every student is accounted for, that we can then release everybody else. It means this. When it comes to a school-based emergency, students come first. Teachers are second. Now, what happens in that situation? You will then be able to say that when you prioritize this way, then the teachers become, someone who has been, in a sense, sacrificed in order to look out for your safety. What is the negative impact of that? You can say, teachers will feel psychologically burdened because we have to come in second. But you can also say the positive thing. It shows the responsibility that we have towards the students. So you can see a positive and negative impact in that term. Okay? You can also say the teachers are the best people to do this because they know the school structure the best. They have gone through all of these practices and so on, and therefore they are in the best position to do these things. So these are things for you to think about. Then after that, you say among the different identified impacts, what do you think is the most important or significant? That again shows some kind of A and E. You need to be able to tell me that the best thing about your emergency plan is this, and why it is so. What makes it stronger than perhaps someone else's written report? Okay. And then, of course, are there other lessons you could have included? I'm going to repeat this. No whining and no wailing. Okay? None of these things. Don't say things like, the lesson I learned is, I will never choose this person to be in my grouping again. I will never allow the teacher to put me in a group. I will always choose my group. You can't do that because those are situations in which you have no control of. When you do PW at year 5 as well, you are assigned a group. You don't get to choose. You are assigned a group. So it's really about making the best situation given a particular thing. And I'm going to ask people who are resting their head on the chair to sit up straight and try and use your neck muscles to support your head. Okay? Later on, I would like you to look what inspired you to choose a particular target group or audience and so on and so forth. I'd like for you to just move on to see question 3. It says here, why do you think, and this is just going further in your project, who do you think, or why do you think the relevant organization you mentioned in your proposal would sponsor you or be interested in your proposal? Like which organization in Singapore do you think might be interested in your emergency plan? For example, do you have an NGO, non-governmental organization that might be interested in your emergency plan? Would there be anybody? Would the school be interested in your emergency plan? Would schools overseas be also interested in your emergency plan? Why have you chosen these places? Perhaps you say that they've never done it before, they probably don't have enough manpower, whereas we spend an entire year doing this. You can also say that. If you look at question 5, which aspects would be revamped? Again, this rehashing, like what could you have done better? What wasn't so good about your thing? And that's the same question as question 8, in retrospect, in hindsight. How do you think you can make your proposal more appealing or effective? You have all of these things. The questions are all similar in nature, in the sense that it actually causes you to have to think about your project in all aspects. And this is important because you want to really critically analyze your project. If it's a good one, we want to know how better you can improve. If it's a not so good one, perhaps that would be good because then you can have more insights and reflections and you can have a lot more meat in that sense. Okay? So what I will do now is just show you the last question. We don't have to look at the alternatives because what happens in the PW, you usually have 2 questions. One is amalgamation in 2010, the other one is alternatives. The practice questions to ask you or get you to think about insights and reflections are similar. So you don't have to worry about that and you can stop straining your eyes and stop writing. I'm going to show you an example of a good INR. Okay. So what you would notice is this. If you read it very carefully, the first paragraph, and I'm going to go into organization of your 500 word INR. First things first, when you introduce this, now this example doesn't come from your batch or anything. This is an example of an alternative. in your first paragraph, you need to let us know. You need to let the markers know, even though we've seen your vision report many times over, is what your project is about. If you look at this, it says the increasing need of elder care and childcare due to the projected increase of elderly and dual income families, divisions, blah blah blah, were the main reasons behind our project. It starts out very clearly. Why are you doing your project? What are the reasons behind your project? Okay, I'm going to have to say stop now. There are people next to you who are falling off to sleep. Can you poke them? Okay? Nudge them. Because there I am seeing people, just losing their balance. Not very good, I might add. Okay? If they are sleeping, please encourage them to keep awake. Okay, you can stop staring at the door now. Thanks. Turn around. Okay. I have you look at this. The first sentence is very long, very wordy. It gives you the reasons for the existence of the project. It gives you very salient points. Notice it's not in very big flowery words. You notice it just gives you information. Then it tells you immediately, in response to the needs, what did you do? Okay, they propose to who? Ministry of Manpower. They don't just propose it into the air. So it is very targeted. So you say, based on the natural disaster, blah 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 that you've chosen, we want to our project sets out to propose this. For what purpose? For whom? When? How? Etc. Whenever you are lost, just think of the 5 WH questions. That should lead you in some good way. Okay? And then after that, they what it is for, and it actually tells you why this proposal has taken place, so that you can upgrade maids, childcare, and elder care skills. It's very purposeful. So that's what happens in the first paragraph. Then they go very quickly. This person goes very quickly. Nothing about it. The limitations. What were the limitations? Basically, you're talking about the disadvantages. What was not so good about my project? Limitation, one limitation. Please, I know it comes out as numeral 1. Please spell it out. One limitation is that we cannot ensure mates will practice what they have learned very quickly. Then they actually, that's the first thing, that's A and E. The next thing they go and they say, we will counter it. That's GI. They are giving you an alternative. This is my solution for my problem. That's basically what they're saying. Okay? And then they go on to explain it very quickly. Okay? Very quickly. That's paragraph 2. See? Then you have paragraph 3. Another limitation is that we did not further consider measuring. So you have 2 paragraphs, 3, 4 paragraphs of maybe limitations. You can go on to say, if you feel, if your project wasn't so good and you had a lot of limitations and you find that there were really bad things about your project, good for you, for the INR. It means that you have a lot more scope to improve. But even better for you if your project was very, very good and successful. You can say how better you can further your particular idea. And you can also do an A and E and G and I for that. Okay. After that, you will look at this. So you have 2 paragraphs of limitations. I'm not giving you a formula, but I'm telling you this is what has been happening here. The next one, it says that looking back, the scope of our training may be relatively wide. They're saying another thing. 2 things here. They're saying reflecting on this in retrospect. They are then saying this is one of the bad things. Another limitation. Scope is too wide. They would like it to be a bit more specific. And why they would do that? Very quickly. Next one. Overall, the project gave me more insight into the contribution of domestic workers in Singapore. Basically, you need to have a very good introduction and the conclusion. What have you learned from all of this? Now you'll find that there is only 3 paragraphs of very, very focused evaluation and analysis. The G and I and A and E are also very focused. Every time there is an A and E, there is GI. And then it goes on to explain why these ideas, which is A and E all over again. So you want to make a targeted, focused sort of analysis of what you've done so far. You don't want to waste words by being long-winded. This is a place where being succinct and very precise is very important. Now, I'm going to stop here and tell you this, that the insights and reflections questions that will come out in the exam will be on a similar line to get you to be thinking about the project, the process that you've taken, you've gone through, as well as the thinking behind this. Okay? Your tutors will have access to more I&R, which they will show you later on or next week. Next week? No, later on. And what's happened is these examples are already good enough for you to have a look. It's going to be short. Your I&R is going to be short. So I'm going to say this: do not fritter away your word count with useless things. Don't try to just fill the page. Make sure everything counts. Okay? Do I have any questions? Are there any questions? Yes? According to? You have downloaded it from IVLE.
Oh.
You have insights and reflections that have been downloaded, have been uploaded to IVLE. Okay, I need to react to two things that you have, that this has been uploaded. Okay, which is a big surprise. Yeah, watch my surprise. And my response to that is this. Okay, hello, uncle, I'm speaking to you. My response to this is, I have to say this. We are showing you the level that we expect from you at year 3. I want to ask you if you think that it might be feasible or good as a teacher to expect you to write good insights and reflections at the year 5 level, year 3 level. I'm trying to show you my expectations now. Oh, no, not at all. Thank you. I am now completely shocked, and I will collect later that these documents have been uploaded. Thank you. Perhaps I could find out which class you're from. Uncle. 3H, thanks. Any other question?
Yes.
Any other question?